So our next deal here, that this has been a hot topic around, but with regards to school vouchers. So public schools didn't want the school voucher because they believed it would eventually hurt public schools. Parents who really had escaped government-regulated schools go to private schools. They didn't want the legislation because they didn't want the private schools regulated by the same system regulating public schools, fearing the regulations would bring them the same problems. So people in favor wanted vouchers, believing it to be a solution to the problems in public schools. One of the projections was that 65% of the vouchers would go to families who were already enrolled in private schools, negating the issue of choice as they already chose private school. Now it is being reported that statistic won't even be tracked, so we won't know if it came from public or private. So we won't know how much choice this law actually supported. We're not really going to know the effect of it, it looks like. But, and I'll read who voted for and who voted against. So I'd like to have one that voted for and one that voted against to speak to this. The majority were against, with Senator Bobbies, Representative Alexander, Representative Warner, Representative Lonnie Fritz, and Representative Tim Hicks, and Rusty Crowe voted for. So you two guys voted for, so, or Senator Rusty Crowe. So Senator Crowe, would you mind speaking on why you voted?
No, I'd be glad to. And I have to say, we have colleagues that are conservatives that voted both ways on this. It was just how you really felt in your heart about the bill. And I really felt that I had a situation wherein the question in my mind was, is a parent's right to choose for their children, those kinds of things, is that a God-given choice or is it a government-given choice? And I felt it was a God-given choice. And what I felt would happen is if we had some of the lower income and middle income kids that couldn't afford to go to private school, government was essentially saying, I'm sorry, you're stuck in that school. It was a choice the government was making for that parent. And that's one reason I voted for it. And then we had just heard that President Trump had said those states that try to go toward parental choice in that way would be getting priority, when he became president for education. And then he also said that he was going to do a tax credit for those that wanted to go to private school. And what our bill did was it held the public schools harmless by saying if you took the $7,200 to a private school, we would then give the public school back that money to hold them harmless. And had we not done that, and if someone were to take Trump's tax credit without our bill, the public school would have lost the money. So there were good reasons on both sides, I think, but mine was primarily that I felt like the parental choice was so important to me from the perspective of that being a God-given choice.
Thank you. Representative Fritz, would you mind speaking up?
Thank you. I'll be honored to. I love Rusty Crowe. I get to serve with him on Veterans Caucus. He and I both wore in uniform. We'll dissent on this one a little bit. My primary reason, I think it was fiscally responsible, first of all, to double pay. And to be honest with you, I don't know about here in Washington County, but in Rowan Loudoun County, we were already free. We didn't need to be liberated. And we could decide where our kids went to school. We just bore the cost of that. But really what took me to the hard no vote on it was Article 11, Section 12 of the Tennessee Constitution. First sentence talks about the inherent value of education in Tennessee. The third sentence talks and gives flexibility to the General Assembly of what we do for colleges and universities. And I think that we in Tennessee are probably K through college, the envy of most of the nation, what we do. Sometimes I'll get a little dissent on that when I say that. But I mean, you can go to get an education in Tennessee, K through college, very affordably, and that's a good thing. But that second sentence in Article 11, Section 12 says, the General Assembly shall provide for the maintenance, support, and eligibility standards for a system of free public schools. That is a specific and restrictive statement from a constitutional perspective. And it doesn't allow us the liberty to be able to send your public funds to a private school. I'm also in support of what Trump wants to do in allowing you just to keep your tax money. But to send your dollars to Nashville and send them through the washing machine of decision-making in the Department of Education, who now, I think, If I heard last week we were in Government Ops Committee, we have set up a deputy commissioner of choice. I think I heard her title. So we have grown government in Nashville to play eeny, meeny, miny, mo as to who gets the scholarships. And we're doing that with your tax dollars at a great cost. And I don't think that's the effective thing to do. In my last 30 seconds, I'll cover this. So I think it's unconstitutional to do that. I think we've been messing it up for a long time in Tennessee. And I just come to that realization after I voted no against it. Because when it says we shall provide for the maintenance, support, and eligibility standard for a system of free public schools, we've been passing 30% of that cost on to the counties on average. I think the state needs to fund that base capability of education and relieve the counties of that burden and let the taxpayers keep that property tax rather than paying for the school.
Just a little bit. It seems like a lot of you guys want to chime in on this. So Representative Warner, we'll give you 1 minute, or Representative Alexander. So
Representative Alexander picked up the mic before I did, so I'll let you go first.
For me, it was an issue of doing what I thought the people that I represented wanted me to do. I had 2 school systems writing me letters asking me not to vote for it. I had received at least 100 letters in my office from people in my district. I looked at that. 90 of them said don't vote for it. 10 of them said vote for it. So I did what I felt was right. My gut was the hardest thing for me, and why I really couldn't vote for it, is private schools weren't required to take children with disabilities, but the public schools are. And we have to fund that and do the best we can do and educate every child across the state.
okay, the next bill.
Can I?
Okay.
Yeah, just a few words. This is one thing that I ran on 2 terms ago when I first got elected. Is we didn't have a private school. It was the first time, I think, in 2019 when Governor Lee passed the school voucher for Davidson and Memphis or Shelby counties. And so, I kind of ran on it. But a couple things that really bothered me about this piece of legislation is the way it went down. The governor called a special session. We had already gavelled into session. We gavelled out of session. They gavelled into a special session. And when we go into a special session, the Speaker of the House, he gets to repick all the committees. The committees were stacked. There was no transparency. We didn't even have the Commissioner of Education come in and testify. We couldn't ask her questions. They're getting nearly $500 million of your tax dollars the first year, and there's no transparency at all. And I could go on and on about the types of schools that's going to get the money, but that's a whole other argument. But I'm all for school choice. I think it should be your right, but I'm just not sure it's the government's responsibility to fund that.
Okay, next we
Hold on a minute.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we get another shot at this. Yeah. I respect my colleague from Southern Middle Tennessee very much. But the Freedom Scholarship Act, the reason that I voted for it is looking at education and the direction that it's going. I love our public education in Northeast Tennessee. There's no doubt about it. But the direction that education is going, I want to be able, the reason I voted for it is I want education to be able to loosen up. So now that we have passed this bill, you're going to see more work on public education to make public education more like private education. It's not going to be the opposite. And that's what we need for education in this school. Currently, the way that we're educating kids, they're all grouped in one big group, and they all are being educated to go to college. We have to let kids be able to learn in their way and the ways that they learn. And
You gotta wrap it up. You gotta get to or we're not gonna make it through all these bills, because we really want to have a couple people speak to each one. So just in the interest of time, but thank you for the comments. The Farmland Preservation Act is said to help farmers, but there's a concern that now the state through easements becomes the primary controlling owner of the farm and of the land, and the farmer becomes the servient owner. The concern is that the government can restrict how the land is used in perpetuity actually, as the easements go on forever. They never end. So here's who we have that voted for this. Would be Senator Bobby Harshbarger. We got Senator Bobby here. Senator Rusty Crowe, Representative Alexander, Representative Tim Hicks voted for, and Representative Todd Warner voted against. Representative Monty Fritz voted against. So if I could get somebody that voted for, and Tim, you can continue your 2 minutes with that if you want to talk about why you voted for that. So just speak to that and whatever else you want to talk about.
I voted for that bill simply because, farmers, I'm a home builder. I'm a developer. We're losing land like crazy. And I think we need to do everything we can as a state to be able to conserve farmland and conserve and help these guys out if they want to try to keep their land. I see so many farms that farmers has to sell their farms in order to provide for their families, and maybe in some way this will be able to preserve their farms so it can be handed down for generations to come. And I think that it's a fair bill. I don't think the fiscal note is too much on it, and I'm all in favor of it because our farmers was really wanting it, and our farmers are extremely important in Northeast Tennessee. So that's why I voted for it.
Thank you. Representative Fritz, would you like to comment on why you voted against it?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. I did vote against the bill because I think it's not the role of government to pick winners and losers. And when I first had the conversation in committee with the governor's office, and they proposed that was $25 million of your dollars. That was $25 million of your dollars that paid for this farmland subsidy. Tim's right. We are losing farmland at a clip, and we need to protect that. We need to go after reducing property taxes and regulation rather than recycling your money back to pick winners and losers. When I asked the governor's office if that $25 million pie chart, how much of that money would go to a Tennessee farmer, how much would go to an attorney, perhaps not even in this state, and how much would go to a non-government organization to manage those in perpetuity. And some of those NGOs hate you Americans, and us Americans, by the way. And they said, well, we don't know the answer to that question, Representative Fritz. I said, well, shouldn't you know that before you run this bill? And so that $25 million was butting up against $60 million that was in the same governor's bloated request for budget. Y'all realize that in 2019, the governor's budget request was $37.5 billion. This year, the governor's budget request was $59.5 billion. Roane County math, that's 59% increase in 6 years. That is unsustainable. And we're not like D.C. In D.C., they just print more money when they want to send it to the Ukraine or something else, right? But in Tennessee, if we're going to spend a dollar, we've got to take it from you and you and you and us. And so we're taking your money and we're spending $25 million against $60 million in a 0% home loan program, which is not the role of government to provide 0% home loans for people. And think about it, just to what Tim had just said, farmland is disappearing as a result of new homes being built. So that $25 million and that $60 million are wrestling with one another to decide who wins out on that piece of property. And it's your dollars that's doing that fight. We have got to get this out of control budget request that the governor's office is under control now. We cannot sustain that. I'll give you one other figure. A friend of mine in West Tennessee sent me this today, and I hadn't looked at it. If you go back to 2016 and look at the budget, it was $33 million. And again, in 2025, the budget request was $59.5. That's an 80% increase over that 9-year period of time. You need to be writing, calling your governor's office and tell him to slow down on writing rubber checks.
Thank you. Senate Bill 527, House Bill 809. The bill states that if a pesticide bears an EPA-approved label, the manufacturer has satisfied their duty to warn and can't be held liable on a civil action. And here's why we citizens oppose this, I guess. The bill uses the government agency to create a liability shield, allowing manufacturers to hide behind outdated and inadequate labels, despite new science showing risk that manufacturers should have known about, and court outcomes where fraud was revealed. It punishes victims for EPA failure to adequately assess pesticides, and it violates Article 1, Section 6 of the Tennessee Constitution that says the right of trial by jury shall remain inviolate. So, you guys, it looks like, voted for Representative Fritz, Representative Alexander, Representative Harshbarger, and Senator Crow voted against. So, Senator Crow, do you want to speak about why you voted against that?
Well, I'll just tell you that I don't trust the big companies. You know, they're making money in what they do. And I felt like just because the federal government had to put on a label that this is something to be wary of, when we've seen so many families having to sue and really go down those roads because of the pesticides that are being used. And again, there's some good points on both sides of this. You know, our farms use this, and we need as many crops as we can. But I just felt like I just didn't trust that whole scenario. You know, I'm like probably all of us up here. I know Monty is, and the rest of us. When I vote for something, I not only listen to the people and try to figure out what's the right thing to do, and you always think, when you get to the pearly gates, if I voted the right way. But I just felt there was something wrong.
I think Trump just said that, right? That's what he's trying to do.
He is now.
That ain't the way he did it.
He is now. But you're right. It's just it just didn't feel right. And I think just because the federal government hadn't put that on a label, it's on a bottle of that stuff. That didn't mean that.
Do you feel like that's relied on too much?
People should be able to come back if they're harmed with it and have in a civil suit type of way. I really think.
Thank you. Representative Harshbarger, you want to talk about why you voted for it?
So I got a chance to vote on this sucker 3 times. It came through Energy and Ag, and then it got double referred back to Judiciary, and we voted on it on the Senate floor. Did it make it to the House floor? No. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so it's still open.
It's anything past this past year will still be voted on this year in the other house.
So I looked at it, I put my pharmacist hat on, which I try not to do, but I looked at it from a clinical aspect for reporting. So in the pharmacy world, we have FDA-approved products, FDA-approved labeling. So there is nothing that you can put on that label that's not been approved by that federal agency. So if you do try to put something on, it's considered misbranded, which opens up a whole Pandora's box of litigation. And that can lead down to either misbrand or don't brand the product. So the way I looked at it, I called this not necessarily the pesticide. I called it in my own head the EPA label. So I took what I know of the FDA, tried to grasp what the EPA does, and the EPA does a similar fashion to where they will approve certain labeling. And after talking with Bernadette, I think we could probably talk for 40 minutes. I'd say a combined 24 hours. When she's open eyes to a certain thing, once you start really digging in the weeds, but I looked at it as a labeling issue. So I do not want to penalize someone for something that they cannot lawfully do. And that's why I voted on in favor of it 3 different times. So it was more of a principle of the EPA. Now I do say this, Rusty, I had the same fear of trusting large companies, and I probably, in all honesty and transparency, probably put a little bit too much trust in the EPA, which is not good, because there are different facets where there are checks and balances that allows them. For example, in the pharmaceutical industry, you have the MedWatch. So you, whether you're a patient, a consumer, a prescriber, you can actually input the adverse events. And that's recorded, it's reported, and it's analyzed by the FDA. EPA has the same mechanism. So that's where I kind of made that connection, and once again,
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I was going to just tell Bert and Danielle that if they want to know the real reason I voted for this, my wife Sarah said, don't come home if you do.
That's probably the best reason ever.